On September 23, 1806, 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days after the Corps of Discovery had set off to explore the newly acquired Louisiana Territory and beyond, they arrived back in St. Louis, ending their journey. The expedition, led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, opened up the floodgates of American expansion, though sadly, in doing so, set in motion the destruction of Native American life and their culture in Western North America. And the expedition produced one item that sparked this expansion maybe more so than any other. Let's go to raremaps.com and type in William Clark, the cartographer of the expedition. The first map that pops up is this. It's an 1815 map published in London titled, A Map of Lewis and Clark's Track Across the Western Portion of North America, from the Mississippi to the Pacific Ocean, by order of the Executive of the United States in 1804, 5, and 6. Though its effect on history may have not been clear when it was published, this is the single most important printed map of the West in American history, and one of the most important maps in U.S. history as a whole. First published in 1814 in Philadelphia, the map, as the title says, shows the path of the Lewis and Clark expedition, from St. Louis to the Pacific Ocean. Let's take a closer look. Our first stop, Floyd's grave and Floyd's River. Sergeant Charles Floyd was a member of the Corps of Discovery and died on August 20, 1804, likely of appendicitis. He was the only member of the expedition to die, which was quite remarkable considering all of the hazards the Corps of Discovery faced. The map's main focus is the physical geography, but it also labels Indian villages, tribes, and bands, some with their approximate populations. Here it states, between these rivers the different bands of Sioux meet every spring to trade with each other and the white traders who visit them. Though Lewis, as well as his boss and mentor, President Thomas Jefferson, had science and discovery in mind, economics is what persuaded Congress to actually fund the expedition. Here we can see Hudson's Bay Company and Northwest Company establishments. Lewis and Clark believed these were in U.S. territory, but this line did not become official. This area was not part of the Mississippi drainage basin, and so it was not included in the Louisiana Purchase. Another river named for a member of the expedition was Sacagawea River. Sacagawea, a Shoshone woman in her teens, made many contributions to the journey, but this river was named after her because of one she made just days prior to the river's naming. On May 14, 1805, Clark stated in his journal, "In this pirogue were embarked our papers, instruments, books, medicine, a great proportion of our merchandise, and in short, almost every article indispensably necessary to further the views or ensure the success of the enterprise." A gust of wind blew over the pirogue, filling it with water, and the articles floated out. But Sacagawea acted quickly. She hopped in the water and was able to save the majority of the items. Had she not, there would be no map, and the expedition would have been for nothing. Pompey's Tower was named after her child. Several places were named for Thomas Jefferson, who was the U.S. president at the time and the mastermind behind the expedition. The depiction of the Rocky Mountains isn't perfect, but it's a vast improvement over earlier maps. On September 15, 1805, Clark wrote in his journal, "All around us are high, rugged mountains, among which is a lofty range from southeast to northwest, whose tops are without timber, and in some places covered with snow." Though not labeled, you can make out the continental divide by observing the flow of the rivers. 40 years after this map's publication, it helped U.S. Army topographical engineers with the Northern Pacific Railroad Survey locate 5 major passes across this divide. An interesting feature of the map is that it has 2 prime meridians. Greenwich was not established as the international prime meridian until 1884. There would be European readers, so at the bottom, the prime meridian is London. Thomas Jefferson ordered 13 copies of the book and map, 10 of which were sent to his friends in Europe. But not wanting to use just the prime meridian of their former colonizer, at the top is Washington, D.C. This map is a simplified version and the final product of this 1810 manuscript map by William Clark. Simplifying did take away some of its accuracy. Thomas Jefferson was actually a little displeased with it. He didn't think it was accurate enough to please the scientific community, and he later started the process of having a new one made on the government's dime, but nothing came of it. There are a few differences in the maps. Lake Eustis, which is present-day Lake Yellowstone, is elongated on the engraved 1814 map, rather than round as on the 1810 map. The changes made are a mystery. This 1810 map took its information from around 140 maps Lewis and Clark drew, and other notes they took. But these maps obviously cover area that Lewis and Clark didn't. This information came from many other sources. Among them were the Indians. Lewis and Clark cited at least 30 maps from the natives. One of these contributions was Waiton Lake, which was probably one or a combination of these two lakes in northern Idaho. Other parts came from maps by Zebulon Pike. Under the authority of Thomas Jefferson, Pike had led 2 expeditions through the Louisiana Territory, first in 1805 and 1806 to the upper northern reaches of the Mississippi River, and then in 1806 to 1807 to explore the southwest to the fringes of the Spanish colonial settlements of New Mexico and Texas. You may have heard of Pike's Peak in Colorado, which is named for him. But Pike never got to see his contributions on the Lewis and Clark map. He was killed in the War of 1812. The 1814 map is titled Lewis and Clark's Track, but theirs is not the only one labeled. John Coulter, a private on the expedition, stayed in the wilderness for several more years after the expedition's return. Coulter was sent to establish trade with the Crow Indian Nation by Manuel Lisa, a founder of the Missouri Fur Trading Company. Coulter traveled over 500 miles and explored the region that later became Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. He was the first Anglo-American to do so. Coulter reportedly visited at least one geyser basin, which is thought to be near present-day Cody, Wyoming. Many mocked Coulter's report of finding geothermal activity, and so the region was half-jokingly named Coulter's Hell. Clark was informed of Coulter's findings upon his return to St. Louis. Coulter had been away from civilization for almost 6 years. Another former member of the Corps of Discovery also made a contribution. George Drouillard created a map of the Bighorn and Yellowstone River, following an extensive trapping excursion in 1807 and 1808. The 1814 map was first prepared to accompany Nicholas Biddle's 2-volume History of the Expedition under the command of Captains Lewis and Clark. A cartographer named Samuel Lewis, with the help of George Shannon, the youngest member of the expedition, redrew the map, and it was engraved by Samuel Harrison. From beginning to end, the map took 10 years to produce. It provided an extensive amount of both new and more accurate geographic information of Western North America, and in doing so, it inspired and facilitated immigration westward. Though not entirely satisfied with the published map, it still met one of the main objectives laid out by Thomas Jefferson, who wished to delineate with correctness the great arteries of this great country, so those who come after us will extend the ramifications as they become acquainted with them, and fill up the canvas we began. In a letter to James Monroe, Jefferson once wrote, "It is impossible not to look forward to distant times when our rapid multiplication will expand itself beyond those limits, and cover the whole northern, if not the southern continent." His vision, what would decades later be termed manifest destiny, had just begun. Before I end this video, thank you to RareMaps.com for supporting this video. RareMaps.com is an online antique map shop with over 10,000 maps in their inventory. This includes maps relating to the Lewis and Clark expedition, as well as other expeditions in the American West. These are authentic antique maps, so you really own a piece of history. Again, that's RareMaps.com. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching.